Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today out in the shop working on a little project. This is a project I'm helping out a viewer and a friend, Kevin Stollard. Kevin has helped me out on some things over the past couple of years in the shop. Although I've never met him, I feel like he's still a good friend. And he asked me if I'd help him out with a couple of these squares that are made by Windy Hill Foundry, and these are sold, or Clark has been casting a few of these and selling them as a casting, and basically you machine them and grind them in yourself. And Kevin did exactly that. He machined these. He's actually already got them ground to thickness. These are 3/4 of an inch thick, but what he couldn't do was grind them square. He didn't have the fancy square fixture here like I've got that I picked up from the folks over at the Solid Rock Machine Shop. Steve Barton made this. It's a square, flat, paralleled within 50 millionths of an inch, and this is a great little fixture to mount something like this on, to grind it square. And I've got one of these squares. I actually did a video on a while back that I used this on. We're going to be doing something very similar today. So let me just, before we get started on this, share something a little bit personal, I guess, with you guys. This past week, I did have a little bit of surgery done. Nothing major. I've got some pinched nerve issues. They found 4 places where I've got some pretty bad pinched nerves that have been causing me some issues. One of them was in my elbow, one of them was in my wrist. So they came in and did the carpal tunnel surgery on my wrist and the cubital tunnel on my elbow. That was done this past week. So I am kind of doing light duty out here in the shop today. They told me didn't need to pick anything up more than about 10 pounds for about 2 weeks after the surgery. It's probably been about 5 days after the surgery. Doing great. I've got pretty much full use of my arm and everything. It is still a little bit sore, and I am trying to be cautious about not overdoing it out here today. I thought this would be a good little job to do, and something that's been on the back burner for a while that I promised Kevin that I'd do that I haven't gotten to yet. So we're going to get this knocked out. So let me zoom you in here. We'll get this thing set up and ready to go to the surface grinder. We'll do some grinding. So give you just a quick close-up of these squares, and like I said, these are made by Clark Easterling over at Windy Hill Foundry. I don't think that he is actively selling these at the moment, although I think he probably will again at some point in time. But if you're interested in one, you can contact Clark. He may have to put you on a waiting list right now, but anyway, it's a really nice little casting. Like I said, I did one for myself some time back. So like I said, these have already been ground on the 2 outside faces, which Kevin was able to do himself. They've been machined square, but they've not been ground square. And what he wanted me to do is grind these square and also try to get them as close to 6 inches in height as I possibly could. So that's my goal today, is to do those operations. One thing I got to looking, this square here, there's a little ding here. Looks like it may have gotten dropped or bumped into something, maybe in shipping. And I also noticed a little ding right there. Nothing too major, but that could definitely affect our grinding if that comes in contact with my block. So what I'm going to do is take my precision ground flat stones here and see if I can kind of just stone those down, get that little ding off of there, and that's about got it right there. While I'm doing, I'm just going to stone the whole surface. You can feel through this stone any high spots, and we've got it pretty well knocked down right there. I feel good about that. Let's go ahead and flip it over. Like I said, there's a little tiny ding right there, and maybe one right there on this one. Don't know what happened. And like I said, you can really feel it in these precision ground flat stones. If you don't have any of these, I really like to have them. I use these things all the time. There's several guys out there that are making them and selling them right now. My buddy Lance Baltsley is one of those guys over at 26 Acre Maker. You can go to 26acremaker.com and order a set if you don't have them. And there's some other guys out there that are selling them as well. I don't recall websites off the top of my head, but they're definitely multiple guys. Shark River, I think, is another one that sells them, if I remember right. Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think of the guy up in the Northeast. It's evading me. I know he sells them too. All right, those are nice and stoned, and I think we're ready to put them over here on this. I'm gonna clean this thing up real good. Just take a rag and probably hit that with my stone lightly as well. So the idea here is we'll use this block back here that's been ground perfectly square as a fixture to be able to grind both of these faces here in two different operations by just turning it on this block. Now, because it is a little bit long and sticking out, what I'll do is on my surface plate, I'll use one of these transfer blocks. The magnetic flux will go through this, and I'll put it down on this, and that will give me clearance where it can stick out a little bit on either end. No problem at all. So my goal now is we need to just clamp this down, and I got a clamp kit here, and we'll go ahead and get that done. So what we'll do, let's see here. Go ahead and get one of these little jack pieces in the back. We'll get I think that would be high enough. No, it won't. Longer screw. Sitting on here right now, roughly where I want it square, but we'll adjust that here in just a minute. All right, so I want to put this on here. I don't want this below the surface, but that's real close right there. We'll just go ahead and tighten that down. I'm just going to snug it right now. We're going to adjust this here in just a minute, but that'll give us a good start. And I'm going to put another one over here, do the exact same thing. Okay. All right, let's get on the surface plate, and we will check this for, go ahead and get this front edge more or less square so I'm not having to grind a whole bunch, and we'll be ready to take this to the surface grinder, yeah. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to actually get this set fairly square, you know, just to get started. Again, I don't want to take any more off of these surfaces. The more it's tilted one way or the other, the more you're going to have to take off one side or the other. He's already machined this square. It should be pretty close. So what we're going to do is just use this granite angle block. I'm on my granite surface plate here. I've got the actual transfer block beneath it that we're going to grind on, and we're just going to bump it straight up against this angle plate, and it's not out by much, just a little bit in there, but we'll loosen this up, and what I'm going to do is just kind of push that forward, and now it's pretty much touching that edge all the way up. I can tighten this back down. And again, that's just going to get me a lot closer to square starting out with, save me some time grinding, not have to take any more off of this than just absolutely necessary. And it doesn't have to be perfect right now. We'll grind it perfect over on the surface grinder, but that's going to be a lot closer. So this setup is ready to go to the surface grinder. You can see we're sitting on the transfer block. The magnetic flux will come up and actually catch this, my square block that I'm working off of. We'll grind the top. After we grind the top, what we'll do is we'll come in, turn our magnet off. We'll rotate this 90 degrees. We're using the block behind here as our reference. This is squared to within 50 millionths of an inch, so that when we grind it, we should have a square grind. That's the game plan. Let's go to the surface grinder and do some grinding. So we're going to do this job over on my Thompson grinder. This is a fairly new grinder to me. I think the machine was made in the 1960s, but I haven't used it a whole lot yet, so I'm really kind of anxious to do it. I've got a new wheel on here that I haven't really used a wheel like this in cast iron. This is a ceramic grade wheel, and I've talked to a couple of folks. They say this does really good on cast iron. Usually use like a green wheel, a silicon carbide wheel on cast iron. But I'm going to give this thing a try, see how it does, see how I like that wheel. I've been having to source some new wheels for this machine. My Landis grinder, it takes a similar wheel. It takes one that is, 7 inches in diameter, I think, or maybe 10 inches in diameter. That's what it is, a 10-inch diameter wheel with a 3-inch hole. This Thompson uses a 12-inch diameter wheel with a 3-inch hole. And while I can run the 10-inch wheels on here, the surface speed isn't really ideal. So I picked up this 12-inch wheel. Actually got it from Jeff Clow, who had got a bunch of surplus stuff from either Lockheed or Boeing up in Atlanta. I can't remember which one, but this is a really high grade wheel, so I'm going to give it a try, see how it works. So anyway, before we get going here, first thing I always like to do is we'll wipe down our chuck and take again, one of our precision ground flat stones, and just, you know, my whole thing of stoning here is if there's any burrs or anything on here, you'll feel it in this stone. And it's just going to make sure you got a nice flat surface that we are working off of. Okay, I might have to raise my head up to give me some clearance, and we'll get our stuff set up over here. Give me just a minute. All right, so we've got it set up over here on the magnetic chuck. I think first thing I want to do is get my wheel going. We're going to dress the wheel. This thing has a built-in wheel dresser. So let's fire it up. I'm going to cycle my head back and forth right here. And we'll just, so it shouldn't need much. There we go. Now I'm going to back that off. Should have a nice clean wheel there. I want to adjust my stops here. This head will automatically cycle back and forth, and I just got it where it basically the wheel's coming completely off on either side by a little bit. We're going to stop our head right there, and I'm going to lower it down till we get a little touch off there. All right, we got a little bit of a touch off. Now what I'm going to do is get my table going here. Put a little coolant in here on it. Don't want to get too much. And we will index down a little bit. So what I've got going on now is at the end of each cycle, it's just lowering the head down just a tiny amount. You can hear that click. And that's it adjusting down, and we're just going to let it go back and forth until that cleans up. All I want to do is clean it up. Shouldn't take much. And I think we've got it cleaned up. I'm going to turn the down feed of the head off now, and I'm just going to let it kind of go back and forth, blank pass on it a couple of times until I hear it quit cutting, stop seeing any sparks. should be where we want to be. So it's not moving down between strokes now. And it's about through cutting, so we'll probably stop it here in just a minute. Let that go back across, and I'll stop my head from moving across. Right there. And I'll stop my table. Shut this coolant off. And I'm gonna go ahead and shut the spindle off too so that we can flip this around safely. We'll let that wheel spin down. We'll rotate it 90 degrees and do the other side. All right, so I'm sitting here looking at this finish and I'm just not real happy with it. And I think what I want to do is I'm going to change this wheel out. I've got a green wheel that'll fit on here. It's a 10-inch wheel, not a 12-inch wheel. So my surface speed's probably not going to be exactly right, but I've ground cast iron with that other wheel before, and I just think it's going to give me a better finish than this. I think it's going to be the right thing to do. So this wheel that's on here is not the exact wheel that was recommended to me for cast iron. It's really close. I was hoping it was going to work out all right. This wheel should be great on real hard steel, like, you know, hardened tool steel and stuff like that, but I'm going to switch over to a green wheel on this cast iron. I think it's just going to work better. We'll see. It's all about experimenting and getting it right. Let me swap that wheel out, and we'll be back. I was going to show taking that old wheel off, but my camera shut off. I don't know how much of that I got, so probably nothing. But I thought I'd show this real quick. So this is the hub that's on my grinder. You basically loosen this center part here, and then you can come in here with a puller that kind of grabs onto these three holes here. It's got a center in here. You turn it and the whole hub will just pop off. I got to make a tool to pop that hub off. And the other thing is that this is the only hub I've got right now. You can set wheels up and leave the hub on there and just pop them on and off without having to take the whole wheel off. And I would like to do that, but I'm gonna have to find some hubs for this machine. And I've been doing a little bit of research. I haven't found anybody that sells a hub like this anymore. So if anybody knows of a source for these things, like I said, this has got a 3-inch inside. I don't know all the other dimensions on it, but who knows? I may end up having to make one. We'll see. As far as the wheel I'm going to use, I'm going to put on this wheel here. This is a Norton wheel. Green silicon carbide, a 39C60-J8 VK. I've used this one over on my Landis grinder, and I've had really good luck with it. I would like to have a little bit thicker wheel. This one happens to be 1/2 inch, but that's fine. And let's see, kind of get those holes lined up there as best I can. There we go. And we'll tighten that on there. See these little tabs here. This is for balancing the wheel. You can put this on a little stand. I've got a balancing stand, and adjust these out and get that wheel running where it's balanced really nice. And when you do that, you just get a nicer grind. But without being able to change out wheels, it's probably more trouble to have to balance them every time. A lot of my grinding friends tell me that they don't hardly ever balance their wheels anyway. Really don't see that much of a difference. Some people swear by it, but anyway, I would like to get my wheels balanced, but I'd have to have different hubs, and until I can find more hubs, I'm probably just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Again, I would much rather have a 12-inch diameter wheel. I have been looking for a 12-inch diameter, 3-inch inside diameter. I really need a wheel that's 3/4 of an inch thick, and I haven't been able to find one. I'm still looking. So maybe I'll turn one up. All right, we got that nib down there right at it. And I'm just gonna manually turn that. Still hear a little bit of a skip. That's a lot better. I think we got it pretty well out. And I'll back that off now. Yeah, we're barely touching right there. So let me get my head going here. And I think we're done after this pass here. All right. Much better grind. And I'm gonna turn my spindle off. All right, I'm much happier with that grind. That is much better looking than what we had a while ago. I'm gonna release my table here, my magnet, and pull this off. We'll rotate it 90 degrees. Remag down our table. Good. Let's get this other side. So again, by rotating it on that block that is already ground in nice and square, we should get a nice square grind. Let's raise our table up. I'll raise our head up rather. Get everything positioned. Got my automatic down feed going here. I raised it up just a little bit, so it's going to probably take it a pass or two to really engage with it. It's starting to touch off now. Taking real light cuts here. The nice thing about this hydraulic grinder is that everything's automatic, no cranking, no turning of stuff, and even the down feed. I've got it automatically down feed where it's taking a couple of tenths per pass, and at the end of each stroke it automatically just moves down just a touch. So not a lot of manual moving of things like I had to over on the Landis grinder. And we're just probably 3/4 of the way grinding this side out. It was taking a little bit heavier cut on this side than the other, which means it probably wasn't milled exactly square. Of course, some of that's our setup. It probably wasn't put on there exactly square, but when we get through grinding, it should be exactly square. I decided to just go ahead and inspect this one while we had it over here on the table, and so let's look at it. I've got it sitting on a parallel down here on the bottom. Now, one thing I'm going to just say right up front, guys, is that because we're having to put this block, which is ground in perfectly square, up on a parallel, we are potentially introducing some error here because of this parallel is not perfectly parallel. I have ground these. At one time, they were within a 10,000th of an inch of being parallel. It's been a while. And I also mentioned that this is not the same parallel down here that I have on my surface grinder. I have a pair of these. They were ground at the same time. I left one on the surface grinder because I just didn't want to move it once I got it set up. So these parallels are probably going to introduce a little bit of error into this, but we can work around that, and I'm going to show you that right now. So I've got a tenths indicator on here, test indicator. I'm going to zero it out. We're going to sweep across this face. Whoops, my needle jumped there. I loaded it. we go. Sweep across this face, and we've got about, let's just say 2/10. Yeah, we'll call it 2/10 across that face. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to flip this thing over 180 degrees, or 90 degrees rather, and we'll inspect it again. I got this zeroed out. This is on the other side, and we're coming across, and maybe 1.5/10. 2 maybe, so it's equaling out is my point. I mean, I think we've got this thing ground within, I'm gonna say 1/10. It may be under 1/10, but that's about as good as you can expect, and I'm happy with it. So I'm gonna go ahead, we'll get the other square set up on the grinding fixture. I'll go grind it, inspect it, and then we'll work on the ends. Well, we've got our faces ground square now, and the second thing he asked me to do was to see if I could grind these where they were 6 inches in length. And so I want to see where we're at. These again have just been milled, rough milled, and we're about 100 thousandths over 6 inches on that one, about 115 on that one. I'm going to flip these over. About 130, and again about 100 thou. So I think what we're going to do, rather than trying to grind all that off, it's just going to be a lot of material to grind off. I'm going to take this over to the milling machine. We're going to deck these off a little bit closer to that 6-inch mark, and then we'll go finish grind them into that last little bit over on the grinder. So if I can get them down, you know, 20, 25 thou, something like that, I think we'll be in good shape. So let's go to the milling machine. So I've measured these. The high part is 130 thousandths oversized. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead, we'll just touch off on this, go down 100 thou, stop, get a good measurement, and then go from there. So let's fire our mill up. We'll come in here and raise our table up until we touch off right there. And I'm going to zero out my digital readout on the Z-axis, and we'll just do about 20 thou. Come across. Do another 20 thou. That worked pretty good. And it looks like we've got 35 thou. Tell you what, I'm going to do another 20 thousandths. That'll give me about 15 thousandths to grind off. There we go. We're going to rotate our part here in the vise. And we'll do it again. So just take a quick look at my setup here. We've got the two squares kind of sandwiched together. We'll grind them at the same time. I got them, these transfer blocks on the side that just kind of gives it some stability to keep them from wanting to tip over. And we've got a depth micrometer that we can come in here and measure. And we've got about 15 thousandths of an inch to get to where we need to go. So that's how much we need to grind off. Let's start grinding. Let's see where we're at now. I think that's about as close as I can get it. It's maybe a couple of tenths off, but that's as fine as I can get it with the resolution of measuring I've got on this machine. I really wish I had a digital readout on it to do these height measurements, but I don't. Well, there we go. I think we are done with this project. We have done what Kevin asked me to do, which was grind the two edges square to one another, and then to get these at 6 inches in length. I'm going to say the length is probably within a thou or two. Like I said, without having a digital readout on that up and down axis, it's really hard to do that, particularly since my scale on there, it doesn't have the finest gradation in it, but I think it'll be just fine for what he's going to use them for. And I'm happy with it, how they turned out. I hope he is as well. I'm real happy with how that green silicon carbide wheel ground this cast iron. Like I said, I need to find the proper size one for that machine. They're out there. I just got to find it. I've been looking in some of the catalogs, and Norton makes that wheel, but they don't make it in the size that I need, so I'm probably going to have to find it from a different vendor. Anyway, we'll find one, no big deal. And with that, that's going to pretty much be a wrap on the project. Well, there we go. That's going to be a wrap. Fun little light project to do while I'm recovering from this surgery without having to do a whole lot of heavy lifting, and a long time overdue, Kevin. I apologize it took so long to get to this, but we've had a lot going on with the planer restoration and everything else. But taking a little break this weekend, I guess you could say, or at least from doing a lot of the big heavy stuff, and this is giving me a chance to kind of catch up on something that's been needing to be done for a while. Guys, with that, that is going to be a wrap. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon up there to get notifications of new videos. Comments are always welcome. And hit that like button. That really helps out with the Google Analytics, and it helps my videos get recommended, and so new people can discover them. So anyway, with that, we are going to sign off. As always, again, thanks for watching.